Gorod Krovi and 9. Two maps that are actually very similar by design and get compared together a lot, despite actually being on two different Call of Duty games. Gorod Krovi is in Black Ops 3 and 9 is in Black Ops 4. Whenever I think about one map, the other comes to mind shortly after. And that's because they are similar, and hopefully as the video goes on you'll see that too if you don't already. And that's why I thought it would be a good idea to get these two maps and pit them against each other to fight to the death. I'm going to be taking a somewhat objective look at both of these maps that are widely loved by the community and comparing the features together and seeing which one does which in the best way. But there is going to be some of my own personal takes in here because, well, it is my own video and there's going to be things I can't help but like or dislike more than other things. And after doing the town and farm video, it's in an iCard here if you haven't watched it, I just couldn't help but think of all of the other possibilities of maps that you could compare to one another that would make for some really interesting discussion and debate and be a lot of fun to think about. I loved the discussion in the last video, many of you seem to enjoy it, and before the commenting starts, let's keep it civil. Here is our scoreboard. We have Gorod Krovi over here and we have 9 over here. First off, I want to start on the setting. For a zombies map to start the road to success, it needs to have a good setting. Just like a book needs to have words in it, birds need wings, and I need to stop making analogies. Let's look at what we've got. Gorod Krovi is set in World War II, a war-torn city turned into a bloodbath in Russia called Stalingrad. This is actually based on some historical accuracy, except for the part where there's giant dragons flying overhead and Nikolai 1.0 in a giant mech suit, weirdly oversized flying robots that zap you, all of this obviously coming from 115 and Group 935 and, you know, all the other zombie stuff. So this setting is the usual kind of thing that zombies does, where it takes a historical place or event and then puts that twist on it, whether it be sci-fi or fantasy or both. It's pretty good stuff. Now let's look at 9. Set in a new storyline called the Chaos storyline, our heroes find themselves in a gladiator arena in Egypt during the time of the Roman Empire. This is something that people have wanted for a long time. I've always wondered what a gladiator arena coliseum type of map would be like, and you better believe that Treyarch cooked hard and really delivered on this setting just like they did with Gorod Krovi 2. I think just going off of the settings alone, 9 takes the cake for me. Although Gorod Krovi's setting is just chef's kiss, by the time Black Ops 3 was a thing, Group 935 bases set in World War II was a thing that was done a lot, but a gladiator arena feels so perfect for something like Call of Duty Zombies. Now for the actual aesthetics of the map. Deciding which setting someone prefers is one thing, but deciding which map genuinely looks the best is a completely different story. For Gorod Krovi, it is insane how well they make everything look so destroyed and burned, and the city feels like it's a far cry from anything it could have ever have been. You can see the remains of houses and factories, and the level of detail of destruction is clearly given so much thought, albeit there's a few landmarks here and there, such as the fountain statue and the church, but you can tell the place has been destroyed and taken over by Group 935 in a really brutal way, and now all of that stuff runs wild. There's bodies everywhere, rubble and debris just cover the floor and a lot of the interior of buildings. There's even a dead dragon here, which is just so cool. Not even dragons are safe, and I've noticed there's this kind of steampunk vibe going on, and the fantasy of the dragons and the steampunk saddles they have on their back and how all of that complements one another looks really good, and it's pretty fresh for the eyes. The only downside that I really have with Gorod Krovi's aesthetics is that I think it might look a bit too colourful for a war-torn city, and that's honestly just a problem that Black Ops 3 and 4 do have. And that's not to say I don't like how BO3 looks, because believe me, it is one of my favourite looking CODs I've ever played, but I think the difference here is that 9's saturated colour makes sense and feels more natural given the rich architecture and the divine mythological temples, allowing that colour palette to be more free and forgiving, and it feels a bit more natural. Once again, Gorod Krovi, its colour looks really nice, the map is gorgeous, but I feel like 9 pulls off the look more authentically, and that's why I'm gonna give 9 the point, because honestly, the architecture for 9 and how big everything feels and the scale of it all is really amazing, and the mythology is hands down the best looking part of it. The Colosseum is full of a big crowd of occult worshippers, constantly watching you and interacting with you. The crowd roars and the war drums thud through the map, and each section is dedicated to a certain mythology or deity. This leads to each path and each area of the map being an absolute feast for the eyes. You'll have one part that you'll stumble into that'll be themed around ancient Greece, dedicated to worshipping Zeus. And then the next place you find yourself in is this area worshipping Odin that is Viking themed, and really takes advantage of how different all of these beliefs and mythology was. It's just something we haven't ever really seen in zombies before, and when we do get it, it nailed the aesthetic. So as good of a job as Gorod Krovi does do, I feel like 9 does it for me that bit more. Onwards to the main Easter egg quest for both maps. I have dabbled in them both, I've tried them, I'm not good at them. I also want to say that the main Easter egg section doesn't include the endings to each Easter egg. That's not going to be taken into account for this, and instead they're going to be judged in their own criteria later. And when I talk about these, because I haven't done both of them start to finish, I am going to try and talk about this as carefully as possible. Let's look at 9 first, and then we'll look at Gorod Krovi. 9 essentially takes you through doing trials to appease gods and find symbols, and it feels like it's testing your skill more than anything. This quest can be done in solo or co-op, so that's a big W, unlike some maps. And once you've done all of the steps, the boss fight is these 2 elephants, but not just any elephants. These are huge zombified war elephants, and they slam and charge you out the way, all whilst you have to maneuver around them and hit at their weak spots. When me and my friends spent like a whole night trying this Easter egg, it was difficult, but it didn't feel like it was in a unfun way. More just that we sucked really bad. And the blue screens on PS4. I'll never forget about the blue screens. But back to the boss fight, because that's where it's at. The giant elephants are just such a cool concept, and they fit right into the map, and it just feels so different for zombies. As far as the actual steps go, I can't really just recite all of them, but the way these two go are actually very similar in the sense that really both of these Easter eggs are just a series of trials. I find that Gorod Krovi's is a bit more compact and tight-knit, whereas 9's can be a bit more specific and tedious, not by a lot and not to the point where it takes enjoyment out of the map, like the Raw trial I believe it is, having to kill the zombies and special zombies in a certain order, is a really good concept on paper, but for me that step when me and my friend were trying it is very tedious, not because I think the step fails, but because the zombie mechanics just feel so overwhelming and aggressive, it makes it a little hard to do any of that stuff. But I can hear the clickety clacks of your keyboards typing skill issue, and to that I say, you're completely valid. I am pretty cheeks at zombies. Then the boss fight comes and kind of balances things out. The elephants are amazing from a visual standpoint. It's so unique of a concept in zombies. The problem is, the boss fight is literally just shoot elephants, shoot zombies, and that's kind of it. And it's in an absurdly big arena. Not that it's a bad boss fight, but when you compare it to Gorod Krovi, this cool boss fight with 2 different enemies, and it's got these different phases to it, with both the dragon, by the way, it's a dragon, I just want to remind you all of that, drunk Ultimus Nikolai in a mech suit, fighting both of them and zombies, and in one boss fight. And if you're not careful, this battle can be a very difficult one. Although I have seen just as many people cheese it, and I don't just mean cheese the boss fight, I mean get some cheese, put some melted cheese on it, get some cheese sauce, then melt more cheese on it. This was insane with how quick people were doing this. So I'm not really sure if the fact that it's such a big thing to exploit this boss fight and kind of get around the mechanics takes away from it. It definitely hinders it with how easy it can be done. So although I could give both of these a point because I'm so in the middle with it, I think Gorod Krovi does it for me that bit more. A main Easter egg quest is amazing, but what really helps tie together a zombies map and make it feel full is the side Easter eggs. Honestly, I don't know where we'd be without them, and if these weren't a thing in zombies, I don't think we'd even have main Easter egg quests, or at least not to the scale that we'd have them now. I'm not really gonna beat around the bush here, okay? I'm not gonna try and act like this is a really tough matchup like the main Easter eggs. It's Gorod Krovi, okay? It's Gorod Krovi. GK has so many side Easter eggs that live in my head and I can just recall any time. Example, the Easter egg song. The flowers Easter egg that gives you the monkey bombs that are upgraded and it's all dubsteppy and funky. Dragon strikes. The upgrade for the shield. And the equipable gear. But then I think about side Easter eggs in 9 and my mind just turns turns to a desert. All I can really think of is the Wonder Weapon Easter egg for that, and the Easter egg song as well, but other than that, I've got nothing. I can't think of any side Easter eggs that 9 has, and I feel like that might be for a reason. Okay, so I quickly just looked up a guide to 9 on all of the things you can do in the map, and all that's there is the music Easter egg, a free perk, and fire immunity. That is all there is. The potential for side Easter eggs in 9 was really high. It could have had a lot going for it, and instead we just got 3. That's it. And with that revelation, we have no reason to stay on this topic, so Gorod Krovi scores itself another W. Cutscenes in Zombies are so important for setting up the map, the feel, the story, and I don't think it needs to be said that it's really important for maps to have a good cutscene. Unless you're playing Groston House or something and you don't need a cutscene, because it is Groston House. This not only includes the intros, but also the endings and anything in between. Starting with 9, they have a really well put together intro that really gets you hyped up for the map, with really good choreography and a bit of intrigue there with the vapors at the very beginning, seeing our characters get reincarnated, if you will, in this different time period. The fight scenes are great. We get to see the occult leader guy, I don't know who this guy is. We see how powerful he really is with that artifact, and it shows that he's very clearly a threat. We're introduced to the different enemies, like the Blightfathers here, which are shown to be these really menacing enemies that could literally turn you into a human pie. Oh, and this part right at the end, that gives me chills. The ending cutscene is also really notable because of the plot twist, where our survivors finish the Easter egg, but they actually get game ended, which is nothing like how an Easter egg would ever end up until now. So kudos to 9 for actually doing something like that. It's really interesting, and I think I can speak for the Zombies community here when I say it shocked everyone. Gorod Krovi has a banger intro. It goes so hard. It emits enough fire to burn down your friend's Minecraft house. Yeah. It literally starts with our 4 characters falling out of a giant portal that opened up from the sky. We see Peter McCain just chilling. This guy's having the best nap of his life. They use his parachute, they land to safety, and they are greeted with a dragon, and then Nikolai 1.0 completely wasted in this mech suit that's basically Tesco value Titanfall. The chaos continues. Zombies are everywhere. The dragon picks Nikolai up in his mech suit and throws him away as our characters run to safety, and so it begins. And this is all whilst Ace of Spades by Motorhead is playing, just in case it wasn't already cool enough. And then there's the ending. This is a complete tonal shift to what happened in the intro. Throughout the Easter egg, Nikolai 1.0 refuses to give himself up for the greater good. After the boss fight is done, Ultimus Nikolai has nothing left other than his vodka. Both the Nikolais talk about how they were traumatized and they had nothing left. After the bombs fell, their wife was taken away. The Primus Nikolai that turned his life around and is now saving the universe looks back on his future self with genuine remorse and pity, overcoming them demons but carrying them with him, whereas this Nikolai, the older Nikolai, has drowned in them, let them consume him, with nothing left but to drown his sorrows in alcohol. There's no MCU haha le funny joke here. This moment is heavy, and it works. Whilst the young Nikolai talks about the pain, offering a guiding hand, some comfort to the very same person, just in the future, the older grizzled Nikolai refuses. Instead of confronting that pain and grieving, he chooses to stay in the alcohol haze. And that Nikolai then has to put the old one down, removing that piece of him for good. It's also great that Primus support each other through these, and we see Takio give Nikolai a comforting pat on the shoulder as a "you good bro" type of gesture, and it's a really nice touch. It shows the emotional bond the group have developed up to this point, and it's something that's only going to grow with these beloved characters going forward. And then we get a setup to Revelations, so if it couldn't be any more of a good cutscene, we get that at the end. For me, the cutscenes in Gorod Krovi, with the amazing action in the intro, and then the cathartic yet really sad way it wraps up this arc of Nikolai, is handled so well. It shows a lot about the character, and it has so many layers layers to it that it's more deep than a 14-year-old's diary. The way they handle confronting oneself is done really interestingly, and it ramps up the feels. GK gets the point again. There's not many cutscenes that can top these. Onwards to the enemies. Now, at one point, I'd be inclined to say, I have no enemies. But, the enemy variety in Black Ops 4 really pushes me over the edge. A big issue that BO4 had, which became an issue for the whole game, is that throughout all of the zombies maps, there were just too many enemies all at once, a bunch of different types, which wasn't handled and put into the game very well. You were constantly getting shafted by loads of different enemy types all at once, and although some maps definitely aren't as bad as others, looking at you, Voyage of Despair, it did become an issue that dragged the game down a lot for me. The enemies we have in 9 are tigers, destroyers, marauders, blightfathers, and of course, zombies. I also forgot to mention, there's these acid guys as well, and these electric guys. Gorod Krovi has manglers, zombies of course, and Valkyries. Yeah, we'll get to them later. So if you haven't noticed already, 9 has a lot of enemy types. And like I've said before, throughout the mode, this is a huge problem in Black Ops 4, and if I was judging the enemies by how things were at launch, Black Ops 4 would have lost instantly because of the tigers. Man, it was a completely different ballpark when they could one-tap you at any point in your game. Personally, I feel like there's this fine line in zombies where too little enemy variety becomes stale, but too many becomes really intense, and it starts to feel really overwhelming, like you're playing Left 4 Dead 2 or something, and it essentially becomes fundamentally broken when there isn't enough effective ways to defend yourself or evade or get rid of these enemies efficiently, and then it just becomes unbalanced. And that's probably the reason why you took damage in Black Ops 4, because there just was so much going on and such little you could really do about it. Tigers, after they were patched, so they weren't just walking fluffy balls of destruction, were manageable. They were basically just hellhounds. Destroyers, marauders, and blightfathers are essentially just spongy boys. That's all they really amount to, and it ends up being stale after a while, despite there being so many enemy types. Don't get me wrong, visually, give Treyarch a round of applause. They're really good designs, but in gameplay they felt like a bit too much sometimes, and just felt a bit annoying in later rounds, as opposed to this is a real threat and I feel challenged in a fair way. Gorod Krovi's enemy variety is decent, you know, it's a good lineup. I mean, manglers are a very welcome enemy type, not being too much of a threat unless you accidentally walk past one that's around a corner, or until it blasts your ass with a cannon, and then you really feel the whiplash of it. If you damage them enough, they'll start charging at you, so I actually do like the way that they can become a threat in a few ways. And then there's the Valkyries, and the Valkyries, I hate them. But to be honest, after taking a step back, I kind of feel like that's the point. My biggest complaints at them is always that they're big, they get in the way, and if they want to hit you, 99% of the time they will. And they're really spongy as well, I can't leave that one out. I really just don't like them. And good lord, I hope you're not trying to train in the bunker with these guys here. Don't get me wrong, it's all good until the Valkyries show up and go into the bunker. It is tragic, it's so annoying, and it is never gonna stop being a massive cock block to people trying to get to round 100. And then they hatch the electric zombies, which feels so unnecessary. Why do they poop out zombies? I need to know this. And if all of that wasn't bad enough, they fly, you know, they're in the air, so that makes it even more blood boiling. I think having one really annoying enemy like the Valkyrie in the map is probably the way to go. I mean, don't make them as annoying as the Valkyries. That should never be touched again. Whoever at Treyarch pitched that, I hope you're having a good day and everything, but I just hope you stub your toe or something, because the pain you caused me is more than you could ever know. I do think if they weren't there, Gorod Krovi would be way too easy though, so I'm gonna write it down as a necessary evil that does gel with the map in some sense. GK gets the point again here. Whatever happened with BO4 special enemies for the most part just felt a bit too much for me. Not that it was too difficult, but really unnecessarily unbalanced and annoying. And that is why Vanguard flopped so bad at launch. Or at least one of many reasons anyway. Oh Vanguard, how we don't miss you. Gorod Krovi came at us with a really interesting, fresh wonder weapon. Let me just get that point across. The Raygun Mark III was no pew pew, this is gonna electrocute zombies for the millionth time. Using this wonder weapon was interesting. The gun on the left would shoot a orb of energy, and then the ray gun on the right would blast normal little ray gun Mark II-esque bullets, more like a Star Wars blaster or something. But if you mixed the two together, you shot that orb of energy, it would explode into this black hole and end up vaporizing the undead. Sometimes you would only need to use the energy cannon bit to slow them down, or sometimes you just need to use the ray gun bit to drop enemies. And this is one of the most fun wonder weapons to use, albeit it might get a little repetitive, but even then, after all them shots fired in my zombies career, it feels so good to use still. I love using it, and if anyone hasn't used it yet, you need to go do that. You should try it, it's really fun. But the reason people complain about this on tier lists is because of its damage. For a wonder weapon, it drops off a lot sooner than you would think, despite in theory, it should be one of the most powerful wonder weapons. I believe it's about round 50 this thing starts to chug, and then the rest is downhill from there. Not that it becomes completely useless, but you can definitely see the difference. The design of the ray gun Mark III is amazing as well. It looks so steampunk yet sci-fi, and I love how it looks and sounds and functions. It looks like something a branch of 935 would make, as opposed to just your standard, you know, Wonderwaff design. I don't really know how to describe it. I guess the Mark III just looks so visually different, but it fits in the same category. Then we have 9's wonder weapon, which I just want to say straight off the bat, looks so cool. The idea of this being some mythical, powerful god scorpion, I don't know, it's some sort of holy scorpion. It has electric coursing in between its pincers, and it honestly looks quite intimidating. The whole scorpion acts as the gun, and it's really funny that it does that. And it's unlike anything we've actually seen in zombies to this day. No, this weapon doesn't work by pinching people's testicles, it just shoots electric, which isn't the most creative wonder weapon idea we've ever had, but it does it in a stylistic way. It's cool, it works. It's no Wonderwaff with the way it chains to all the zombies. It doesn't feel as impactful, but what this has the advantage on over the Mark III in Gorod Krovi is the fact that I think it looks more unique, being this interesting mythical creature, and it also has infinite damage, and that is easily one of the most important things in a wonder weapon. You have to charge it up though, which feels annoying, and it brings the illusion that the weapon is a lot more sluggish than it actually is, but really you're going to use this, pack-a-punch it, and last way longer than you would with the ray gun Mark III. The problem is though, I personally find the Mark III more fun to use, and that's a big thing for me. But no, I'm not going for round 100 every match, but I can't ignore what's on the table for the Circuit's Kiss, or Death of Orion, whichever one you want to call it. So I'm going to give the wonder weapon point to 9 here. It's statistically a lot better, it shocks zombies, it takes them down quite efficiently, you don't have to think too hard about using it other than charging it up, and the design is really sleek and visually different and distinct. Layouts in COD Zombies maps are super important because not only can they help the player get around the map easily, but if the layout isn't very intuitive, then it's going to make playing through said map such a drag that you'll just quit and never return. Another similarity between Gorod Krovi and 9, and one of the most noticeable ones, is that their layouts have a close resemblance to one another. That being, they have one central hub in the middle, if you will, that serves as the connective tissue between all the other places in the map, allowing you to go from the top right end of the map to the bottom left of the map through that middle hub as a shortcut. And in said middle section, there's usually some helpful things there. Gorod Krovi, for example, has the dragon wings, juggernog, access to a shield in the bunker, as well as mule kick in there, and a Vesper wallby. And with 9, there's the best training spot in the map, and given that the center of 9 is the main stadium, that's where the crowd will throw gifts to you if you've got good affinity. You can also access your trials there as well. This layout is one of the best in COD Zombies, it works so perfectly, and that's why both of these maps are really beloved. But which one has the best layout? And for me, it's gotta be 9. I personally think that 9 is a lot more casual friendly, as well as just easier to remember. Not that Gorod Krovi has bad map design or anything, they're both fantastically designed, but I do feel like 9's layout is a lot easier to remember, to pick up, and learn. Each area is distinct and easily labelled, and I know Gorod Krovi has signs and stuff like that, and I do know my way around the map, but I think 9's is just a lot easier to remember, whereas with Gorod Krovi, sometimes I find myself wandering off in the wrong direction. Despite thoroughly knowing this map, I'm playing it for like years now, literally since it came out. Wait, that was 7 years ago? Oh man. Well, that one hit like a ton of bricks. I just think that 9's is a lot more cleaner with like the nice square or circular hub in the middle, and that is that. Story is our next way of grading a good zombies map, and with town and farm I couldn't do this because town and farm. Now I might have done an oopsie and I might have given my answer away if you couldn't tell in the cutscenes section. I might have gotten a little too excited whilst talking about one of the maps, but give me a moment to explain. Like I mentioned earlier, the story from the very beginning of Gorod Krovi to the very end of the map is this really touching, deep, thought-provoking, and genuinely interesting type of experience which all of Primus go through, but Gorod Krovi's is handled so delicately, much like Zetsubo no Shima's and Horizon Draka's. It shows that the characters are just so much more than zombie killing machines, and in the case of Nikolai, that was pretty much all he was seen as throughout the whole of Zombies up until this map. The reveal of him only having one wife was amazing, and the rest were fabricated through the drunken nights. And then on top of that, we have the reveal of Dr. Monty in this map. This was a huge thing for anyone remotely interested in zombies at the time. I remember seeing the Shadows of Evil Gobblegum machines, looking at Dr. Monty's factory, and I was so confused. I thought, who is this Dr. Monty, and why does he make so many gobblegums and perks in this huge factory? It's all so strange. And it was this map that blew the lid off of the original Dr. Monty mystery. Granted, there was plenty more to speculate about because Dr. Monty is a character we still don't know a lot about to this day, but just hearing this guy's voice and hearing him say that he knows our characters very well was such mind-blowing stuff. We also met Sophia, which is a whole other can of worms. She kind of brought Maxis back into relevance by mentioning him again, and all in all, every bit of story on this map was amazing. Now with 9, I feel a bit unfair comparing it, since 9 was the second map in a new story which people had to really warm up to, and you can tell the story was really trying to get the ball rolling, and sadly it never finished either, so there was probably going to be things that would make 9 much more impactful. For example, why is the map called 9? We don't know that. It's just called 9. What is the relevance of that? There's clearly a reason, and that's it. We'll never know. The vapors in the beginning are really interesting. I like the Chaos story despite how a lot of other people feel about it. It's honestly a shame it got cancelled just as it got to the good part. So now the mystery of these vapors that our characters take to enter the map in these alternate versions of themselves, and the significance of what is done in that map is going to be a lot cloudier now, and it doesn't really say much. If it's not obvious enough already, Gorod Krovi, take my point. Our second to last criteria here is replayability. This is one of the most important things a zombies map can have going for it, considering replayability is what keeps the whole mode feeling fresh and keeps people coming back to it in the first place. If a zombies map has no replayability, it's going to be detrimental to its success when it's being ranked. Unless it's that really rare occasion where one zombies map isn't replayable, but it absolutely slaps and that first time experiencing it was well worth it, and although you don't need to replay it, the time you did do it was an unforgettable experience. Both of these maps have more than enough things to make them replayable and make people come back to them. Like with 9, you can try and speedrun the Easter egg, do all of your trials in one game, use different perks from the Black Ops 4 perk system to switch up how the match is played. And my personal favourite, try and go a whole match without using the Mog 12. It's impossible. There's something about 9 that just makes going into the match, getting set up, and then using whatever weapons you want, your specialist weapons especially, really fit in the theme, just whacking zombies with the hammer of Valhalla, or using the chakarams to snipe zombies as it bounces around and then comes back. It actually makes the gameplay a little addictive, and it makes you want to come back when you think of Black Ops 4. Trying out the custom mutations as well, or playing with bots, which may not be map specific, but it technically is a part of the map, so it makes things really fresh and different if you want to do that, and that can lead to hours and hours of slaying zombies and different match varieties all the time. 9 is a lot more intrinsically motivated, whereas I feel like Gorod Krovi is a lot more extrinsically motivated. Custom mutations let you change the game, but you don't have to. You would only do that because you want to, not because the game would give you a reward or really incentivize you to do something, which is extrinsic motivation. And I feel like that's what puts Gorod Krovi in front for replayability compared to 9. Gorod Krovi has a good balance of extrinsic motivation motivation and intrinsic motivation. Those things you would think to do and set your own rules for are actually accounted for within the map. If you want to do speedruns, the map has a built-in timer. Gorod Krovi actually rewards you, that being the time trials that you can do to get melee weapons that shred throughout most of the match. It has side Easter eggs that give you upgrades and rewards for doing them, and if you want to set your own rules, you can. 9 lets you set your own rules on mutations, which I suppose is technically extrinsic motivation, but it doesn't feel like it's giving you that nudge to really partake in everything. Gorod Krovi gets the W for replayability. There's more to do, it's fun to do, and the game gives you more reason to do things. And obviously, like anything with zombies, you can set your own challenges just because you want to do them. 9's replayability for me solely hangs off of wanting to just go into a match and kill zombies. Like seriously, it feels like Doom when you're in there, so I'm not trying to take credit away from 9. The desire to do something just because you want to do it, being more than a good enough reason to play a game, is amazing. It's why Minecraft works so well. And there's not a lot of zombies maps that get that same feeling that something like 9 does. And now for our final section, before we add up our points, this is about the fun factor. Which maps do I have the most fun on? Doesn't mean I prefer the map or I think it makes it better than the other. This is just down to personal experience as to what map I think is just more fun. And this is where it gets really blurry, because I understand that Gorod Krovi at this point, from everything we've talked about, clearly has more stuff to do and is such a blast doing it. But 9, like I said in the last point, it's like Doom, and you can just slay zombies in this gladiator coliseum, and doing that in a casual match is honestly really fun. And it's so difficult because Gorod Krovi also has the time trials with the melee weapons, which has added hours of enjoyment for me. But with 9, using those specialist weapons, using the Mog 12 or the Hades, it all feels so impactful and crunchy, and high rounding on 9 is a genuinely interesting time. The Easter egg is a challenge for both of them, but with 9 it's just such a rush and I don't really know how to explain it. The crowd are throwing power-ups at you, you can get a pack-a-punch gun by like round 5 if you do the trials right, and with all of the powerful equipment given to you, and the rush of running around the Colosseum, it's some of the most fun I've had killing zombies in a while. 9 is gonna score the final point. Gorod Krovi seized the day, it's got its victory royale with 6 points, and 9 was really close behind, just missing the mark by 1 point with a total of 5.
Nice.
Wow, that was so difficult to make. I knew that these two iconic maps would be way more difficult to pit against each other and try and think about what one does better or worse than the other, but this was ridiculous. I had to really roll my sleeves up and get my hands dirty with this one. And I feel like there's going to be a lot more complex opinions about this than little survival maps like Town and Farm. Both of these maps, while similar, are beloved by the community for good reason, and you can go on any of these and have an amazing time for a long time. But anyways, I'm gonna leave this video here today. If you enjoyed, be sure to smash the like button and comment your thoughts on this down below. I would love to hear how you all feel about this and have a solid, good discussion about 2 amazing zombies maps. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, you won't regret it, and turn on the notification bell too to stay notified whenever I upload a video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.